Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. This is First Friday Spirit Talk. I'm Christopher Mitchell. I'll be your host. And today we're going to open with a short astrology segment that I call Chris's Astro Cast, where I'll explore some of the current energies that we might be experiencing as shown through the tool of astrology. So the aspect du jour today that I kind of want to break down is a bit of a gnarly transit that we are having with Mars and Venus, both conjuncting, coming together with Pluto in Capricorn. So to break that down, the way that that energy works out is, first of all, Capricorn is the sign, the astrological sign that this is happening in. And Capricorn is all about what we have established and what we've built up and constructed within ourselves and within the world, the systems that we've put in place and whether or not they're working for us and what we want to have built up. Mars is about our action and our motivations and our desires. Venus is about our value system and our way of relating. And Pluto is the depths. It's the transformational stuff that can be hard to face, but that we find empowerment through. So putting this together in a sentence, Mars and Venus are traveling together, how we act, how we're motivated, and what our values are. And those have been coming in to a conjunction with Pluto over this week. And that has been causing the potential for a lot of deep and unconscious stuff to arise around what are our motivations? Where are we acting from? What are our values? What's important to us? How are we relating? What are we holding on to? What are we attached to that might not be true? And how is it affecting us? These are all these Plutonic questions that happen when a planet passes over Pluto, and what is in darkness or repressed or disempowered within us can come up for a chance to be looked at and brought to the light so that it can be transformed for our empowerment. But that can be an uncomfortable process because this is all the stuff that we've been trying not to look at, that's been under the surface. And when such a powerful activation of Pluto happens, it can be like an oil geyser, and just all of a sudden things are spewing up and we have the chance to be with that swirling stuff and relate to it in a new way. So Mars and Venus moving over Pluto in Capricorn can bring up a lot of things for us to look at in ourselves, of our fears, our jealousies, our resentment, upsets, angers, attachment, manipulation. All the unconscious stuff gets felt and shown to us. And it isn't about wronging all of that stuff, because that's how it got stuffed down there into the depths in the first place. But it's about being able to feel it, hold it, have compassion and understanding for it, but then still also be the inner parent who can act according to, act in consciousness and to hold those energies while still showing up in the world the way that we want to, without letting them drive us. Even in the midst of that storm, we can act consciously, we can choose consciously, and in doing so, we get to transmute all this stuff into empowerment as we see that we can handle it in a way, as we see that we can hold it safely and still set up our foundation the way we want it, still act in ways that empower us, even amidst all the stuff inside of ourselves that can scare us. So the aspect is edging off now. We've had the intensity the last couple of days as it's been most prominently shown to us, and now it's integrating for the next couple of days. We have a chance to feel all this and still act the way that is important to us to act. And it is Pisces season, which is all about trust and spirituality and surrender. So we aren't in this alone. And if we slip, if we stumble, if we get caught up in it all, it's not a problem. Life will gently reroute us and help us stay on track. We don't have to get it perfect to be getting it right, but every time a Pluto activation happens, we have a chance to bring more of this, to transmute more of this darkness to light, to feel safer with ourselves, and be able to handle more while still being conscious. And then thankfully on Saturday, I'm looking forward to it, Mars and Venus are both going to move out of Capricorn into Aquarius, shifting the energy after months of diving deep, digging deep into what is, and evaluating our systems, and potentially pressuring and picking ourselves apart. These planets are moving into Aquarius, which is a lot more objective and future looking. So we might actually have the chance to have some healthy detachment from a lot of what we've been working with, as well as be able to look towards solutions and actually creating the future that we want to live in for ourselves. So there's the Astrocast for this moment in time, the first week of March 2022. And now let me introduce you to the rest of our panel for the main event. This is First Friday Spirit Talk, where we get together on the first Friday of every month at noon to explore different spiritual and metaphysical topics in depth. I'm here with two of my favorite psychic and spiritual teachers, Reverend Ginny Brown and Scout Bartlett. And like I said, I'm your host and astrologer, Christopher Mitchell. This month, we will be exploring the theme of honoring yourself in relationships. So to open that up, let me pass it to you, Ginny, and ask, what does it mean to honor ourselves in relationships? And how do we lose sight of this or get out of the habit of it in the first place?
Well, welcome everybody. Happy to see you all here. Our relationships is how we get to know ourselves, and we grow through them because of the love that is present there and the love that we feel. Love often inspires us to kind of come out of our comfort zones and into a place of compassion or empathy or challenge. And it's a very inspiring force for us, which is why we do it in the first place. And so, honoring yourself in a relationship is about learning how to stay in your own energy versus seeking validation or seeking information from the other. And you can see that happen a lot, like in the beginning of dating, like, do they like me, right? Versus asking the question of, do I like them? And staying in what that is showing you. And so we begin to give our power away, or to let the relationship be defined by one person when we take that role or we give it to the other person to be in charge of. And so it's when we look for, answers from the other person, or direction or attraction, like, do they find me attractive? It's like, no, do I find them attractive, right? And so you stay in what is for yourself. And that's what it means to honor yourself in a relationship, is to know what you want. And that may be an open-ended question in the beginning, but to continue to allow that to sprout and to show you what it is that you want and what it is that you're seeking to grow inside with the other person. Scout?
I want to open out with wishing everybody a happy my birthday month. I'm trying to create that into an international holiday. I think everybody should celebrate festively and extravagantly. Throw parties, gather your friends, do decadent behaviors, whatever makes sense. But happy my birthday month. And on a very tiny side note, I am honoring my birthday this year. I have been invited to and accepted that we're doing an exhibit of my photos in the Lola Art Gallery in San Francisco for starting Friday the 11th, the night before my birthday Eve, and then exhibiting all the way through the end of March. So if you get a chance, please go in and sign the guest book and, say something nice, even if all right. Say something nice. I'm really shy about my art, and I would almost follow with a self-deprecating, even if you don't mean it. So don't say anything nice if you don't mean it. I've been working with a theory for a while, and I like to toss it out to people for them to experiment in themselves or check it out in themselves. And this is the short package of that I know that I'm told that there are like multiple words for lava in the Hawaiian languages, and there's multiple words for snow in the northern languages up in snow countries. In English, we've only got this one word, love, that is this amazing variety of stuff. And we get a lot of cultural confusion around it. So here's the theory I want to toss out for y'all to experiment and play with, well, for my birthday month. That can be one of your birthday gifts. If you wish to send more, you're welcome to. I have been looking at it that love is the word that labels a sensation, and that the sensation it labels is the sensation we have when our energy or our aliveness is flowing in us. So love is the word for the sensation of our aliveness or our energy flowing in us, whether it's triggered by puppies, whether it's triggered by funny pictures of baby ducks on the internet, Hawaii, a tree, a person, whatever. Love is the word for the sensation of or somebody's photography. Love is the word for the sensation we experience when our energy and our aliveness is flowing in us. Now, years back, I was having one of those moments when Guidance and I were having a conversation. I was allowed to ask a question. Hard to phrase it, but that's just how it goes. And so what I asked was, why is there such an intense drive toward coupling? Why is there such an intense drive for finding one's other? Because we've got this whole, what I've labeled the 5 basic rules of love that we all get enculturated with, brought up with, and we understand those 5 basic rules of love as being there is someone out there. We're supposed to find them. We'll know it when we find them by the feeling. We'll recognize that feeling when we feel it, and we're supposed to be with them for the rest of our lives. So I was asking Guidance. Thanks. Yeah, Greek did a better job on words for love. I agree. But I was asking Guidance, why do we have such a drive toward coupling? And my guidance being my guidance, I got that there's 2 primary reasons for this huge drive toward one-to-one coupling, or currently modern culture 1 to 2 or 3 or 5 or whatever. But why there's this huge drive toward one-to-one coupling? And they told me there's 2 reasons. One, connecting in that one-to-one coupling is one of the strongest ways for us to find our way into and connect with our own sense of love. So reason 1 was that one-to-one coupling is a profoundly strong, not the only, but a profoundly strong way for dialing in on, connecting into exactly what Ginny was saying, really connecting into our own sense of our love as stimulated, triggered by them in our presence. And reason number 2, my guides being my guides, reason number 2 that we have this strong drive toward coupling is that one-to-one coupling is one of the most fabulous places to get our buttons pushed, and notice where we clench up and shut off our own flow of aliveness and our own flow of love, so that we can recognize that we want to find our way back and sort out the buttons that we assumed were just normal and landscape. So it is a process, exactly as Ginny was saying, of finding my way into my own love and recognizing that's me. It's not from them. It's not based on whether them. It's not that I am nobody till somebody loves me. Finding our way into that own sense of aliveness and building our ability to come back to that, even when stimulated by another person. And in relationships, it becomes a project of, there's a wonderful series of books by a science fiction author named Heinlein. And he has this character that's like 500 years old and therefore a little bit cynically wise about people and human beings. And one of his key rules of relationships is, Lazarus Long is the character, and you can actually find books that are just his quotes. But one of his key rules about relationships is, if at any time I think he phrases it, in a family dispute, you should suddenly discover you're actually right, stop and apologize immediately. Woman I studied with named Patricia Sun, her phrasing was, in any dispute between you and your beloved, the first one that comes sane in the midst of all of the triggers, the first one that comes sane, it's your job to stay sane until you can come from your heart and reconnect and let the debate or dispute diffuse. If at any point in a dispute with a loved one, you should discover you're right, stop and apologize immediately. And at any point when you're in dispute with your beloved, as soon as you become sane, it's your job to stay sane and come back to your heart until you can let the dispute resolve, and focus instead on connecting and communicating from your heart to their heart. So relationships are a fabulous tool to awaken our heart and a wonderful tool to show us where we get crunched.
And I want to make sure to broaden it out a little bit, because the next month's theme is actually going to be particularly dating and romance types of relationships, and that I want to encompass relationships, because the word relationships can have such a quick association with us to, oh, dating, Tinder, dinner and a movie, relationships, right? But actually we're in relationship with everybody we encounter in any moment, and honoring ourselves in a relationship is can pertain to the conversation we're having with the person at the checkout counter at the grocery store every bit as much as it can with a family member or our partner or partners.
Or your mind chatter.
Oh yeah, our relationship to ourselves as well. And that is kind of the core here. What was Ginny, as Ginny was opening with her comments about do they like me? Well, how about do I like them? Then there's also the third part of, do I like me? To get into there as well. And that in some ways is probably the place to go to heal where it is, why it is that we're not honoring ourselves in a relationship in the first place. Just jazz in there, but I think that's probably right. And so I'm going to pass it back to Ginny. I'm going to keep it going kind of in a circle for balance's sake here. But as we are drawn to connect and as we are drawn to relationships, because we aren't islands unto ourselves, like we have this deep drive, need, spiritual something or other urging us to connect and be interconnected. So how do we balance being connected and caring about others with also being individuals and caring for ourselves?
You have to put your mask on first. And, there's a lot of confusion, I think, about what it means to be caring and connected. Because regardless, we are connected. There's, in my belief system, there's a thread from me to every person and thing on this planet, that we're all a part of the same ecosystem, and that is what we're here working on. Some get lit up and some come closer, some feel bigger, but that's what it is. And, you really have to learn how to take care of what it means to take care of yourself and what it means to care for others. And to me, learning how to be genuinely compassionate, which means to allow someone to be where they are, to honor where that person is without feeling the need to change them or change the situation or scenario. That is what caring is. It doesn't mean that you have to give yourself over to it. It doesn't mean that you have to be, porous and kind of leaking all over the place. To care for someone in a situation is to simply witness, to bear witness. And that can be, listening when someone calls, if that is in alignment with you, to watch as someone is going through a difficulty or a victory, like going to Scouts Art Show, which I plan to do. But, it's learning about the depths of compassion and what that really means, and so to balance staying connected and being caring, and kind of holding on to your individual nature is to only give what you want to give and what you can give without it being at a cost to you. One of my father figures taught me a lesson very early on that I think applies to this situation very well. And it was around money. He said, If someone asks you for a loan, asks you for some money, only give them what you can give and never expect in return. It's not about, and if it ever comes back to you, that's great, but never give what you can't afford to live without. And so I apply that to time. I apply that to energy. I apply that to money. I apply that to many different aspects of my life because I think it's extremely true. And karmically, yes, things come back, but it's a way to take care of yourself. If somebody asks me for, I don't know, $30,000, I'm like, I've got $10 I will not miss, and it's not going to affect me, but 30,000 would, And so this is what I can offer you. And it doesn't mean I care any more or less. And if I gave them 30,000, it wouldn't, what am I doing at a deficit to myself? So learning what it means to be caring, learning how, to compassionately be in people's lives, I think is how best to kind of like set a boundary and also to be caring to yourself and others. Scout, you going to go a different direction with this, you think?
Oh, no, I'm just going to reword it. So if y'all want to get to meet Ginny in person, you can come to my art show. Anyway, I am a self-professed professional energy junkie. I have this peculiar knack of being able to, when I'm in state, actually perceive things as flows and patterns of energy. And that among my gifted areas are being able to recognize and work with flow, whether it's highway flow, whether it's dance floor, whatever it may be. To quote from David Pomerantz, and he's got this beautiful song that just leads out with, "It's in every one of us. To be wise, find yourself." As near as I can tell, wow, I have like 27 thoughts coming in from guidance, and I only have one mouth. It's such a limitation. Y'all are going to have to listen inside your heads as well, and I'll just try to do the outlines of this. I've been doing a lot of work with the image of tulips, the flower of tulips. And I noticed that if I'm walking by a field of tulips, if it's early in their season, it may look like tulips are about greenery. And a little later in the season, it may look like tulips are about the bud, and then it looks like tulips are about greenery and the flower. However, if it's a professional garden and they harvest all the greenery and the flowers and send it off to some other place to market, or if you just leave them in your garden to run their full cycle, at the end of their season, the greenery and the flower die away and they're gone. They're basically becoming fertilizer for the next round. I saw a great thing the other day of, what if it turns out that plants have actually domesticated us so that we convert oxygen into the CO2 that they use, and then our bodies become the fertilizer for them to grow off of? Just a fun thought. But if I think about tulips, the greenery and the flower turn into fertilizer for the ground. But the truth of the tulip is what happened in the bulb. Not the one season of greenery and flower, but the multiple seasons of growth and expansion and transformation in the bulb under the surface. And so I think of us as being also, as spiritual beings experiencing a human lifetime, and I can't see us any other way. Otherwise, we make no sense at all. But as spiritual beings experiencing a human lifetime, untangling our lessons through the process, it looks as if the body and the personality and the character and the interaction is what it's all about above the surface. We're the greenery and the flower, to whatever degree we look like flowers. What's really going on is the expansion and the growth of that underneath part, the essence, the soul, the spirit, the inherent nature. And in that part, I truly think that one very, very viable route in the game of growth is learning the ability to come back to one's heart center, come back to one's center, regardless of circumstances. And that's difficult to translate. So that's easy to translate for people who are heart-based. It's easy to translate for people who are empathic. It's a little harder to translate for people that are power-based or people that are intellect-based. And so we'll just phrase it for those of us that are empathic and heart-based, it's come back to our heart, regardless of circumstance. For power and intellect-based, it's come back to your center and your state of peace, regardless of circumstance, your ability to allow, regardless of circumstance. And the key part being that regardless of circumstance translates to unconditionally, right? I think a very key path is to come back to one's own recognition of one's state of love again and again and again and again, unconditionally. So I've been working also with a quote, and y'all have heard me reference it because I'm talking about it a lot, which is, I forgive them not based on whether or not they deserve forgiveness, but because I deserve peace. To which I would say, I come back to my heart, regardless of circumstances, and regardless of whether they deserve me to do that or not. At the same time, that doesn't mean that I welcome them in my space. But more than that, that doesn't mean that as a gift of caring, I bend my energy out of me and flow my energy into every them in my world to feed them at the expense of me. As an energetic practice, it's come back to my center and be lit and shining from my center as my gift to the planet, to the world, to the people I care about, as opposed to me trying to be giving myself to them. Time, money, energy, attention, worry, concern, energetic flow, energetic tendrils. Coming back to my center and letting that light shine out through everything and everyone around me. Floors, chairs, walls, ceilings, people, baby ducks, baby rhinos, whatever you got around you. Letting that light shine out through is my gift everywhere. And my analogy for that is a cast iron pot-bellied stove in a country store in winter country where the snow is deep. The stove does not hand out embers to put in everybody's pocket to warm their way home, but it does allow the people that want to really bask in the heat can sit at the checkerboard. Or they can be shopping in the store, or they can be, chatting with the store owner, or they can be cross-country skiing and see the glow in the window and be warmed in their heart by thinking about, I'm having such a good time out here cross-country skiing, and when I get home I'm going to make cocoa, or maybe I'll loop around and stop off at the store on the way back to enjoy their big stove. Be that warmth, be that radiant light, and come back to that regularly, I think is a key. So I think it's Ginny's month, right? I know I'm 1 minute early.
Yeah, so at the
Cool.
midpoint
Allow
of,
me, if I can, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to do a tiny energy experiment for y'all. And this will work even if you're watching the recording of this on YouTube. And if you are, please click subscribe, please. In fact, get your entire Outlaw Needlepoint gang to join together and click subscribe. We just need the numbers. But this is just me potbelly stoving out through the entire listening audience and everybody that listens to it in the future. So I'm going to hang in with that energy boost. Sorry about cutting you off, Christopher, but go ahead and do your next hosty parts.
Sure. So at the mid part of every Spirit Talk, we do a meditation segment, and we alternate between Ginny and Scout. This month it is Ginny's month. So if Ginny, would you like to lead us in a meditation before we get back to our questions?
Yeah, let's do it. So just settle into wherever you are. And I invite you to close your eyes. And together, let's take a nice big deep breath in. And exhale. And today we're going to focus on our relationship to relationships. And as I say this word, what comes to mind? Do you notice tension? desire, confusion, resistance, or pull. And ask yourself for a relationship that holds your energy. Maybe you tend to lose yourself around this person. Losing your individualness or your agency. And just say hello to them. What quality do they have that causes you to lose your seniority? Maybe they're loud or needy. Maybe they seem to know everything, are really empowered. Maybe it's someone you can't say no to. Whatever answer you get, say hello to that. Whatever is bold in the other is the medicine you need. If they feel empowered to you, you're lacking in power in yourself. If they always have the answer, you're ignoring your own intuition. Just see yourself showing up in this relationship as equals. And seeing what they show you as a teaching. Experiment with that and see what changes. And I invite you to let them go. Call your attention back. And when you're ready, open your eyes.
With that energy broadcast and the combination of Ginny's beautiful spirit and me, you may have, during that meditation, noticed that you had waves of feeling deeply peaceful or deeply connected to everything. When I was talking about letting our light radiate out through us, there is a place where lots of us get wired up thinking we need to bring value to a relationship. There's a Midwest theory of I can't possibly go to a dinner invitation, even if they told me don't bring anything. I can't possibly go without bringing something. If they tell me they're doing a cooking class, don't bring food. It's paired with wines, don't bring wines, and I'm stuck having to figure out something else to bring. right? Because I have to have provided value to have made it worth their while to have me there. And a whole lot of us do friendships, and partnerships from I have to have brought something to have made it worth their while to have me there. And so shifting from extending my energy out into them to feed them with energy. As a kid, I used to call it smoothing them. But to shift from extending my energy out as my understanding of giving, and instead come into being my own energetic presence and making it my choice to make my energetic presence be my most lifted self that I'm able at the time. It's not that it's not giving. It's not that it's not healing. It's actually more giving and more healing than when we're overextending ourselves. Yeah, that's it. End of sentence. It's more giving and more healing than when we're overextending ourselves. Thanks, Chris.
So a question came to me last night that I hadn't had prepared ahead of time, but it just feels so important to me. And I wanted to weave it in somewhere. And me and my post-meditation blankness seems as good a place as any to go to that as an anchor point. So the question is, what, if anything?
We like to do that to Chris. Throw him way out far in space and then see if he can still think linearly.
Getting very empowered. It is tricky. But the question is something like, what, if anything, do we owe to others? And I think that this is kind of a really core piece as we step into more neutrality and empowerment in relationships, is to understand, because there's so much of where we give our power away that can be sourced in expectations, cultural conditioning, societal, spiritual, whatever it might be, of ideas of what we owe each other. So I thought getting clear on that might help to further illuminate these themes that we're working on. Ginny, do you have kind of a take on that?
It's a sharp one. That's usually Scout's job. But my question is, how much of ego was present? What do we owe another person? Do we owe them anything at all? To some degree, yes. To some degree, no. But that's karma. Karma is your debt to someone. And it's not about keeping things in, a Libra mindset of like, you did this for me, I need to do this for you. It's not about trying to kind of like keep life perfectly organized and equal like that. That's not necessarily the point. But how much of ego is present will dictate how much karma you have and what kind of debt you have with that person. So how much did you take? How much did you take? That's your debt to someone.
Well, beyond just the ideas of debt, though, as well, it's kind of like, it's the right and wrongness that we put on ourselves towards how we show up, that we should be any particular way, that we're all souls together, so we always have to be loving, or we always have to be compassionate, or we always have to be understanding.
That's not a spiritual teaching.
Mm-hmm.
That's an ego vice grip that is trying to get you into some state of perfection or a grandiose idea so that you can never achieve a state of peace. So that you can never, from a place of heart, without guilt, be working on your karma and on what you actually owe someone. When we reach a state in our development of humility, and we reach a state of deep empathy, like heart-opening empathy, it is our heart's desire to make things right. It's not like Sisyphus pushing a boulder up the hill. Like, I've got all this debt and I need to be working on it constantly. It's in that moment that life has brought you to your knees and you feel so open and connected. And it's like, fuck, I need to apologize for that. or I know what that feels like now. And I want to own my part in whatever that was. I want to make that right. That's what it looks like to kind of resolve like what you owe someone. It's not about these little like tit for tats guilt actions and like penance and things like that. That's huge misleading, both on the on a spiritual road, like that you need to be tithing and having penance and flogging yourself. All of that is the absolute wrong way. So it has to come from a place of heart openness, like when we're resolving debt. And we do have debt with people. We have acted from a place of ego. We have acted from a place of closed-heartedness. And that's what we're here to resolve. It's not about, me borrowing $5 from someone and needing to give it back to them. Those debts get resolved. But it's more on a spiritual level, like what I believe, Chris, you're pointing to is the deeper debts that we feel like we carry with us. Those are resolved by our understanding and our empathy and our heart growing in its ability to love beyond any other like singular individual action that calls our attention.
It's yeah, because you talked about earlier about the thread that connects all beings, and there's this and the cultivation of these spiritual qualities that we can want to have about being loving and understanding and empathic and fair and balanced. But I like what you're saying here, that it doesn't come from a place of forcing and debt. It comes from a place of being open to it and having it be the natural way. We can't push ourselves into being spiritual. We can only become more conscious over time. And that what we owe to each other as brothers and sisters doesn't come from pressure. It comes from us opening to our understanding of our consciousness and connection, and then it flowers out naturally.
Correct. Like your perspective begins to blossom. That's what consciousness is like this opening of your perspective and your willingness to step into the other person's shoes and see things, feel things, emote from that perspective, to understand it, to walk that walk. And that's what we owe each other, is the willingness to come outside of our egoic, like it's this, my way is the only right way to live, and experience the other side and understand why, what has created their design, what creates their universe and their world. That's the debts we hold or owe.
Scout, what lit up for you and all that?
Oh, lots of stuff. That was way fun. I could just sit and listen to her. Couldn't y'all? If I look at any and all of our relationships, and if I play with words a little bit, I would say that the biggest thing we owe in our relationships is to maintain our inner resources sufficiently that we can easily afford to pay attention. Being there, being present, bringing our attention, noticing the things that take us off and come back to whatever would be our peaceful center, or in my space, heart sense. Noticing the things that punch our buttons and being willing to honor and recognize those. Jung, Carl, not Steve, one of his comments was, I feel that those things that we most seek to hide or keep hidden are the things we most have in common. Being willing to step forward and be authentic with another human being, while at the same time being willing to notice when we've just gotten our buttons pushed into jam, and to come back out of being in jam with the reality of, they didn't do it to me, they did what they did and I responded. And again, if the things that they do are nasty, love them a lot and let them be someplace else. It's a really true thing. Let yourself have your full heart experience of your love of them, and plan your logistics so that they are somewhere where you aren't. At the same time, if they are there, allow their expression of themselves to flow by you, and recognize that the saddest part of it is that it's a wonderful quote. I think it was from, I think Eleanor Roosevelt's been credited. People would worry a lot less about what other people think of them if they knew how rarely they do. And so there's a really key in there that it's sometimes really hard to remember when you're interacting with someone that you have a personal interaction with, that they're interacting with their stuff. They're doing what they're doing. They're being what they're being. And it has nothing to do with you. I like animals. I like dogs. I like cats. I have a friend that has a really yappy dog. It offends me that my beautiful, exquisite, warm, loving heart energy doesn't win that dog over. And every now and then the yappy dog actually gets on my nerves and makes me mad. How could you dare yap at me? Don't you know who I am? And it turns out it's just a yappy dog. You know, on the flip side, I have another friend that has this dog that jumps up and greets me when he sees me at a distance. He's so excited to see me. And I find that every now and then I'm checking with my friend and going, does he do that with everybody? Or is that personal? It's hysterical. My relationship with these little small dogs or people. Because sometimes, you know, you have friends that are yappy dog people. And you can't imagine why they would be yappy dog people with you. Oh, wait, I'm down for her. So that was Christopher Good. I can't imagine why they'd be yappy dog people with me, you know, with my exquisite heart loveliness. People are just doing what they're doing. The place that we bring our gift is coming back, being present, being authentic. And authentic doesn't include, wow, that just triggered anger in me. It doesn't exclude, it doesn't exclude, whoa, ouch, that just punched my buttons, and I don't even know why. I had the most fun conversation with one of my closest friends the other day, because she had done something that's 100% in her nature and in her background. And I had found that I was observing that she was doing something that's 100% what I would expect her to do. And I was clenched up about it. It had to do with something with my neighbors. And they're perfectly nice neighbors, but I got triggered. And I had to study it for a little while, and then spoke to her and went, wow, when you did that involved me without my vote in something about my neighbor, it clenched me all up. I was really surprised it did that. And she looked at me like, what, why, how? And she did say, gosh, I didn't know that would do that to you. I'm sorry. That was sweet that she said that. But it was also like, I would never think twice of that. I would never have known that could make anybody clench up. So I wouldn't have known it would make you clench up. To which I said, I wouldn't have either. I was surprised, and yet I could authentically own the fact that I had this little tiny yappy dog part of my mentality, and it got its button pushed, and that would have had a thing between us that just needed to be, like, you know, voiced and cleared. That next time you're going to do something with my neighbors that involves me, let me know ahead of time so I can be ready to unclench before I go into this quirky little odd part of my own neuroses. What we owe everybody, if you want to use the word owe, more to the point, what we're here to do is feed the bulb while we're in the greenery and being the flower. And feed the bulb is be there authentically, notice the buttons, the patterns that get triggered, because all of our karma is shown in ourselves as patterning. Patterned response, reflex response, patterns that get triggered. And the whole game is untangling those patterns so that by the time we're done with our season as being this particular tulip, by the time we're done with our season, we've fed that bulb by untangling more of the things that stood between us and being present and being authentic and being heart. Your turn.
That was great. I like that. No pressure, but I'm hoping to fit in two questions in our last 10 minutes here.
I think that was to me.
Oh no, it's to everyone. Neutral presidential debate moderator here. Wouldn't that be great if this was a presidential debate and one of these two was going to be the next leader of the? Oh man, voting for that reality. But so. I wanted to go to asking, as we're learning all this about honoring ourselves in relationship and understanding the roots and the shapes of these dynamics. Well, okay, so right now we're learning a ton in this talk, and probably all of us find ourselves in the midst of different relationships that are in various states of tangled up and not, you know, absolutely in place practice of these principles. So as we look around our reality and we notice the states and shapes of our different connections and relationships, where the karma is, how we're currently perhaps tangled up in them, imbalanced, expecting, needing, wanting, etc., or where we've taken on energy from others or taken on others' expectations, how can we start to untangle from all of that and get clear and clear out the energy that we may have taken on or gotten tangled up in? Is that something where a particular practice is necessary, or is just in present time moving forwards, choosing from these principles enough to untangle everything else on its own? Essentially, do we need to reclaim, fix, or can we just move forward and it will unravel itself? Ginny, did you make sense of all that?
Uh-huh.
In under 3 minutes?
Actually,
Under 3 minutes.
to be fair, I think that I put in there the second question, so we can just.
Oh, pressure's off.
Yeah.
Now you have 4 minutes.
Well, I think you're going to need a cord buster to undo all of that. But that's what me and Scout are for, is to help you untangle and uncord. And you can do this with many other practitioners, but it can be good to have a neutral party to help you see what you're creating in your relationships. It can be hard, I think, to do on your own, because you're not neutral, especially if you're charged, especially if it's a present time relationship or something that it has a lot of your energy in it. There's many different methods to reclaiming yourself or to becoming more empowered, but a lot of it is about choosing differently when you're in a situation. If it's like, this person contacts me and always wants my help, and my knee-jerk reaction is to help them, and I'm giving my time, I'm giving my resources, and giving my money, giving whatever it is away. It is my job to stop doing that, to choose differently. It always comes back to a place of self-betrayal when we're in relationships, when we're giving our power away, when we're doing things that we don't want to do, or things negatively are happening in our lives. We play a role in that, of allowance, and are giving permission, for that. It's like kind of like how they talk about vampires, right? You have to first invite them in. Then they're going to seduce you. Then they're going to, take your life force. But the very first thing, and they're going to use the techniques, to get in, but you allow it. And I think that is true of all of our relationships. And it's the hardest part for us. It's usually the place where I see a lot of people spin out, is because they don't want to accept that they have a role in what they're creating, or what is happening in their lives. And so, if it's a repeating pattern, first time something happens, usually that's a creation moment, right? If you, get overpowered in a situation, and it's the first time in this lifetime that's happened, it is a creation point. And so if that continues to happen in your life, right, then there's a part of you that feels like you have to do that, right? You don't understand that you're giving permission for those situations to happen. So, to have a neutral party, help you see into that, to see into those dynamics, I think can be a really helpful way to not get lost in your own giant abyss. I do it, I know Scout does it, we do it for each other. So it's, it's not, anyone's job to enter into themselves unguided, and especially in things that can be as complicated as that. Scout?
First piece, and it's reflex, so I apologize to everybody for this reflex. Nobody needs a book. Nobody needs a YouTube video or a teacher or a coach. You can get there on your own. meditate, pay attention to your dreams, pay attention to your space. However, I noticed when I was learning piano way back when I was learning French way back which I've forgotten almost all of, it was way handier for me to learn it from someone that already knew, was way quicker than try to sit and figure it out by myself. And so Ginny and I, Ginny and I, that's really a key part, or any of us practitioners of this sort of thing. Chris's astrology insights, they're all places to give us a view from the outside. When, rephrase, key part being, when we notice, actually, I'll tell you that for the month of, I do a radio show and it's up on my website, and the website's right there. Or the shortcut's just notscott.com. But for the month of March, the 4 shows in March are all little mini workshops on various topics, one of which is releasing or interrupting stuff that stays stuck in your brain and runs around in loops. So the recordings show up on my website each week, and you can download them, listen to them absolutely free. We taught one of those mini radio workshops on a concept I call thought interrupt. There's a place where we can get stuck in old events, old traumas, old history, old compartments that get containerized in our mind, in our consciousness. And our whole goal, to feed the bulb of this season of being a tulip, our whole goal, I know everybody's probably already hoping I get over that one soon. Our whole goal is disentangling that stuff. And sometimes disentangling includes interactive amends. Most of the time, disentangling includes letting the swear word go inside ourselves, so it's not just looping and looping and looping and looping and looping. You've already successfully integrated everything there was for you to learn from those previous traumas and previous experiences. You can recognize that everything that ever happened to you that was more than 10 years ago can't possibly happen again because you're not who you were then, so the same circumstances would be different. Even interpeopled. I think that's not a word. It's refinding our way back to self with whatever tools we find available. Ginny and I both do a whole lot of contributing to the world, tithing to the world, to borrow that word, to make sure that information's available. I have a deep respect for the fact that my first and primary teacher, Betty Bethards, did a lot of things that she did that were very, very cheap, which made them accessible for me when I was very, very not moneyed, broke. I was broke in, and therefore I was broke. And so I honor that by continuing that forward and paying that forward. And at the same time, whatever tools work for you, use those tools to find your way back. Now, oddly enough, we're talking about relationships, so I want to take a brief moment to talk about grieving. Whether they pass away or whether they pass out of your life or whether you suddenly discovered they're not, there was a wonderful, Ashley Brilliant has a beautiful piece of art I had for a long time that just simply said, I will always treasure the false image I had of you. And we get there where suddenly people will shatter the false image we had of them that we treasured. And we grieve. Small, tiny practice to celebrate my birthday month. Let's dump out a lot of that old grieving. My practice is that solar plexus spasms that we would label sobs are really key to physically support your mind releasing old pain, griefs, and sadness and trauma. Find a tearjerker that can give you sobs and just have the sobs for as long as you can sustain them, back that tearjerker movie up, have the sobs again and keep doing that till there's nothing you can find to sob over anymore. And it doesn't even have to be related thoughts. Just use their skill as a filmmaker as your trigger. Hallmark Channel's good for this. But, so are a number of other, I just lost it. Clean that out so that you have more of you and less of you that's stuck rerunning loops about old history, about whether or not you should fix it, whether or not it's ever going to happen again, whether or not you should be guarded against it. Come back, come back, come back, come back. To borrow from Ram Dass's first book, be here now.
That's the Pisces season invitation, is to look up from the trauma, look up from the patterns that we've created before, and see what's here now that's trying to recondition and heal us and show us the love that and acceptance that is innately here for us. And also, I just got to add in, because every time I hear Scout talk about the sobbing solar plexus pump, I get fascinated by the fact that I think it also applies to deep laughter and to singing,
Yes.
and people who are up on stage wailing out and processing. So that act of go scream at a mountain, have some nice laughs, sing a song, it's all ways of processing and moving energy through our systems, you know? And that's pretty cool to see that physical reflection and how those things help us. But that's March's First Friday Spirit Talk. This was a really good one. Thank you, everyone.
If we do say so ourselves.
Yeah. And I do. I think so. My 12th house Chiron sensitivity to the empathic collective senses that it is so. So it's objective and neutral. Next month, we're going to be talking about kind of a not deeper dive, but a secondary dive to this into dating and relationship focus. And that'll be really fun. And the talk about being broke because you're broken has me playing with the idea of maybe doing a money episode for Taurus season as well. So there's a bit of a potential roadmap. Thanks for joining us. My name is Chris Mitchell. You can get in touch with me through unlimitedastrology@gmail.com if you want to look at your chart, understand more about that. And I'll pass it off to Ginny and Scout to round us out here.
You can find me right there. Individuals, animals, couples, whatever you got, just come my way and we'll work it out. Scout?
I'm Scout Bartlett. Again, I'll reference the radio show, and I want to thank it. David Whitaker was in the show today, who does Neon Buffalo music. He composed the theme music for my radio show. I'm thrilled and honored David was here. I do sessions with individuals and couples. We do energy work in every single session, and the thing, I'll add the warning that there's a wonderful piece that as soon as people book a session with me, my guides go to work. So that's a heads up. Some people have been surprised by that. But you can find me at ifidknownthen.com. The radio shows are also up there under ifidknownthen.com, or the memorable shortcut of Not Scott. If you're watching this on YouTube, please click subscribe wherever that is. If you can gather up your kids' 7 million TikTok followers to all come in and click subscribe to this channel on YouTube, we don't care. Well, we'd like it if they'd watch the stuff, but we just need the numbers to unlock some features in YouTube that we'd like to have unlocked. So you'd be doing us a gift of love and giving me a birthday gift to do that. We'd appreciate it. So I want to ask everybody 2 favors since it's my birthday. 1, treat yourself as a loved one, because you truly are. And no matter where on earth you are, notice it's a perfect day for you to have a great day on purpose.